Hi, I'm Ruth Tecle, and I'm here with Elizabeth Rowley, leader of the Communist Party, and that party's candidate for the riding of Toronto Danforth. Welcome to TVO.
Thank you very much.
So I want to start the conversation with you talking a little bit about the Communist platform. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. The main drift of our platform, as it says on the outside, is that we're campaigning to put people's needs ahead of corporate greed, and we think that almost all of the parties currently in the legislature are advocating policies that support big business at the expense of the majority of the population. We think that's a bad idea. We think, for example, that full employment policies are what is really required in order to get rid of the deficit and also to put the province back to work. There's so many unemployed. We want to raise the minimum wage well above the current $11, and we want it to be at the level of the minimum livable wage. It's not charity we're talking about, it's wages, and that would raise the floor under all wages. We want strong social programs, not privatized and not P3s. We certainly don't want to see the kind of agenda that Mr. Hudak is advocating, with attacks on labor rights and massive layoffs in the public sector and consequently in the private sector, because that would throw us right back into a deep and a long-lasting recession. This is not the way to go, and the consequences of those kinds of policies are what you see in Europe, where there's massive demonstrations and protests against terrible living conditions and people eating out of garbage cans and more recessions. So this is the wrong way to go. So how to pay for the social programs, people always ask that, and that's a good question. Somebody has to pay. And our view is that we need progressive tax reform based on ability to pay. So that means the load would be passed on to the large corporations that are doing extremely well and to the very wealthy. And there should also be some tax breaks for working people.
That's right. I actually wanted to talk a bit about the tax breaks, or the taxes that you think the Ontario government should enforce. So you want a tax on wealth and inheritance taxes on estates over $750,000.
Yes.
Could you talk a bit about that?
Well, these are the kind of taxes that are currently in place in many countries, but not in Canada. There is a very small wealth tax, actually, that was brought in by the Liberal government in the deal they made with the NDP over not this budget, but and not the last one, but the one before that. The problem with it is that it is so small and it's tied to the deficit. So the funds that it generates are to go exclusively to bring the deficit down, and when the deficit is eliminated, the tax is also eliminated. So we think that these are the kind of taxes, actually, taxes on wealth, that would contribute to the public treasury, and there's no reason why we shouldn't do it, other than the wealthy and large corporations don't want the government to. And again, the problem seems to be that most of the parties are beholden to big corporations and not interested in what is actually needed by the majority of people who live in this province.
And speaking of what is needed by a majority of the people, one of the issues that's come to the forefront of this election has been jobs. Every party has a different platform on how we should create jobs. Tell us what sets your party platform aside.
Well, I think that we want to see, first of all, an end to the plant closures and the loss of manufacturing jobs and jobs in secondary industries. So that means we should have plant closure legislation, which would require big companies like Caterpillar, for example, which used to operate in London. Well, it took over electromotive diesel, and just decided that they wanted to pay half the wages that the workers there were making, skilled workers. And so they upped and moved their plant to Indiana, which had passed right-to-work laws, right-to-work for less laws. And some Canadians are now living, actually, in Indiana, making half the wages that they made when they worked in London. Terrible consequences for the economy in London. And so that to stop that kind of job loss, which is last year responsible for the loss of 33,000 good jobs, and over the last 10 years, 500,000 good jobs. So the government should have plant closure legislation to stop it. We also want to see a massive public social housing construction project. We think 200,000 units of affordable housing over 4 years is a good idea, put a lot of people to work, and it would address the housing crisis, the affordable housing crisis, and the lack of it that currently exists. We also want rent controls, by the way. Yeah. We want to see we want to get out of NAFTA and the trade deal, so we'd like to see the development of manufacturing in areas that we used to have. For example, agricultural implements used to be a big operation in Brantford. We're an agricultural country, why wouldn't we do that? Appliance industry, Hamilton used to have a big appliance industry, and not only, but that was a big factor in the economy there. Build houses, you need washers and stoves and dryers and so on. Machine tool industry, there's a lot that could be done, you know, and should be done to put people back to work. So it's not a question of fooling around with numbers, it's a question of creating real jobs and doing it now.
Okay. Moving forward, communism is largely seen as an ideology of the past. Why don't you explain to our viewers why you think it has relevance to Ontarians today?
Well, I think the communist, what makes it relevant is capitalism. You know, and what we are seeing in this election, and for that matter across the country, is political parties that are advocating austerity, 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 and the terrible consequences that policies of austerity have had and will have if we get a UDAC government. It'll be catastrophic. So people are looking at our platform and seeing, you know, full employment policies, strong social programs, singular secular system of education, expanding public hospitals, and you know, the kinds of platforms that people really want. And so we are getting actually traction in this election that we haven't had in previous elections. And people are saying, well, if the Communist Party is advocating this, well, I'm interested. And we are getting, for example, requests for lawn signs that we're not used to getting in such numbers. It's not, and I don't want to suggest that it's huge. It's not huge yet, but it's a market difference. And if you look through the riding, you'll see some lawn signs. And I think you will see, well, I'm not sure if you'll see an increase in the vote or not. It depends how free people feel they are to cast their vote. We're telling people, cast your vote for something you really want. Don't use it as as a block to stop this or stop that, because you will never get out of the box if you do that. If you really want this program, it's a program that speaks to you, then vote for it. And so obviously we need proportional representation in order to make every vote count, including every vote for the Communist Party and for this platform. So I think, we're an alternative, and one on the left, not one on the right, and that's how people are responding to us.
Okay. So historically speaking, Ontario has never elected a communist MPP.
We have. We've elected two.
Two?
Two.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know that.
Yes, we have. It's been a while, but we've had two. We've also had two federally, and currently there are a number of communists elected to civic governments and school boards and so on.
When did that happen?
Well, it's quite a while ago. It was in the 50s, okay. Where we had two. One was elected in Spadina, actually, area, and did a very good job.
And do you think that now is a time for obviously Ontario to re-elect an Ontario?
Yeah, absolutely, I do. And I think that the public reaction in this election, not only to the Communist Party but to the whole election, which is many people are saying that they don't know who to vote for because they're all the same, and meaning all of the parties in the legislature. There's a real anger that we are hearing from the NDP, and I think everybody is aware of that, not just us, but we do get calls from people who are NDPers who are very angry, some Liberals as well. So people who want to see something, who want to see a platform that would curb corporate power, essentially, because if you say to corporations, you can't do this anymore, you can't just up and go, it's illegal. You have to have a reasonable reason in order to close your plant or move it. So that's curbing corporate power, and we want to do that, and we want to expand labor and democratic rights, equality rights, social rights. People are responding to that. That's what they want to see. And they're a little bit they're concerned that nobody else is advocating those kinds of policies. They're surprised that the NDP is not. And they're sort of dealing with, well, it's the Communist Party, so what does that mean? Well, maybe I better take a look at the Communist Party. That's what we're hearing. So sooner or later, those votes will add up and we will elect somebody. Sooner would be better for this economy.
All right. Well, I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
There you have it. Elizabeth Rowley, leader of the Communist Party.